Hello, and welcome to a very special Bridge Command tier list. I'm Lieutenant Commander Edmund Ward. I am one of the co-designers of All Hands on Deck, the Bridge Command crew drafting game. And today we're going to be ranking all 42 of the cards, the crew cards found in the game. A brief overview of All Hands on Deck is that it's a closed draft card game where you'll have a hand initially of 8 cards. You'll pick a crew member to draft into one of the 4 sub-teams on your ship, and then you'll pass the hand to the left. Then you'll draft from the hand you just received, and so on and so forth. When you have each of the sub-teams crewed by at least one crew member, then you'll be able to start completing missions. So decisions about which cards are best to draft are a little bit situational. Because you'll want to look at what missions are currently available, what missions have already passed, and this is going to determine whether or not you're looking for high numerical values, or if you're looking for take that powers to undermine your opponents, or if you're looking for faction affiliations. That being said, some cards simply are better than others, and other cards are situationally better than others. I'm going to generally review these cards in terms of their power value, their strength in the game, how likely it is that this is the card that I would pick in an average hand, in an average game state. I should also talk about the fantastic artwork by Lieutenant Commander Natasha Vuchak, and of course we'll touch on some of the reasons for the powers, and a lot of those have come from co-designer Paige Callahan. So let's get started, and I'm just going to go through these in no particular order, but I think the best place for us to start is, of course, the captain himself. Oh, one other quick note before we advance. Of course, I know Roger Taylor is currently a Commodore, but all ranks and ship assignments are based on the state of the universe as of the 90th anniversary of the Warspite, aka the 2-year anniversary of Bridge Command itself. So let's take a look at the Roger Taylor card. Roger Taylor adds 2 strength to the sub-team that he's assigned to. The numbers that we really want to look out for when we're thinking about crew strength is most of the missions are looking for either 4, 6, or 8 strength in an individual sub team. So 2 strength on its own is very unlikely to help you complete a mission. You're going to need another crew member in that sub team, most likely in most cases, in order to fulfill a mission's requirements in that sub team. But 2 is respectable, right? You pair a 2 with a 4, and now you've got a 6, and now you're really completing most missions that require strength in that particular sub-team. 4 is a real sweet spot, and 6 is a real sweet spot. So the 6 strength powers are very, very powerful. The 4 strength power cards are super powerful as well. Anything less than 4, you're thinking, well, this is basically half of a team, right? 2 or 3. It's like half of a team is a way of thinking about it. But if we look at Roger Taylor's power, of course, he's adding +1 strength to other Warspite crew. So you have Roger Taylor in your crew, and then you put in another Warspite, UCS Warspite character, and if they're a 3 strength now, they're a 4 strength. That can push those over the edge and make a much more efficient crew. That being said, you know, it's unlikely all 8 of your drafts are going to be Warspite officers. So you kind of think this is like adding a total of max +7 fairly inefficiently set across your crew. Spread across your crew, and in reality it's more likely to be a +4 or +5 somewhat inefficiently spread across your crew. So I definitely wouldn't be taking Roger Taylor as a first pick, but obviously you have a look at the crew you've currently drafted, the missions that are currently available. He quite often slots in nicely as a fourth or a fifth pick, and then you can go, aha, by placing him, I'm boosting the sub team that I'm placing him in, and I'm also just nudging over the edge of value, some other sub teams as well. But I would definitely call Roger Taylor basically a solid B tier, like a really good card, a decent card, but I think he's a good anchor point for sort of an average strength card. Let's take a look at our next card is Kennedy Green. Kennedy Green is a Warspite officer with 3 strength, and her power is a unlike Roger Taylor's, which is an always on power. This is only valid the turn that you draft Kennedy Green, and it allows you to pick which hand you want to draft from the next time. So this is one of those powers that is stronger if you're a more attentive player and you can remember what's in each hand. If you've got a really good memory, then you can kind of use it to really rejig the whole set of drafts and line up your next couple of turns. Kennedy Green is also a medical officer. There are only, I think, about 4 medical officers in the deck, so less than 10% of officers have the medical tag on them. There is at least one mission which requires a medical officer, and there are some really great synergies with medical officers. We'll get to Nathan Kilmore, the nurse Nathan Kilmore card later, but he boosts medical officers by a whopping 4 strength. So one like classic use of Kennedy Green is if you've seen Nathan Kilmore, who's not a card you would normally draft unless you had medical officer. If you've seen them in the draft, what you can do is grab Kennedy Green, then yoink the hand with Kilmore in, and then the next turn grab Kilmore, and then Kennedy Green is now worth 7 points. Pretty good. But I will say Kennedy Green is quite situational. It requires you to be a particularly attentive player, but the medical tag is and can be very powerful. But I do have to still put Kennedy Green below Taylor in the tier list in rank C. I'm not going to be taking comments from any Warspite officers on the rankings of their cards in this tier list. For a start, although I am a co-designer of the game, you may very well legitimately disagree with me. I know Paige and I have disagreements, many disagreements during the design process and even now about the best and worst cards and which cards are not really that useful. And I've played against Paige and had her prove me wrong on some cards. But anyway, my ranking of the cards is no reflection, Kennedy, of my views on you as an officer, so please don't at me. With that said, let's move on to Commander Kenneth Collingwood. He's a solid 3 strength. He's a Valiant, so for example, he would not be boosted by Captain Taylor. And his power, Here Comes the Cavalry, is a when you draft on the turn you draft Collingwood. After you then receive your next hand for the next round, you draw an extra 3 cards into that hand, and then after you've picked, discard 3 cards. So I'm going to say this now because this is our first sort of hand manipulation card that we're looking at, but do not sleep on the hand manipulation cards. They can be very powerful. They not only let you take in this case, you get to take a pick from an extra 3 cards in your hand. So you draft this sort of turn 2 or turn 3, then your next turn you're going to basically have 50% extra cards to look at, which is a much higher chance of being able to pick a really powerful card, one that particularly synergizes with the crew that you've got. But it's not just that, it also gives you control of the game because you're now discarding 3 cards. So, you could discard junk that you don't think is that useful, or you could discard threats, things that you don't particularly want to draft, but you don't want other people to draft because it'll either be very powerful in someone else's hand, on someone else's crew, or maybe used to harm your crew in the future. So you can get rid of the Charles Richards, or you get rid of a Sam Falco for someone who's collecting London base officers. Or you can simply get rid of the next 3 best cards. So you're taking a good card, and then you're passing junk. So very powerful control the game type card, Collingwood. So not to be slept on, but he's sort of I would say, of average power. He's not completely shaking up the game. Obviously, you'd rather draft something that's giving you direct, immediate benefit. But in lieu of something that's A tier or S tier, I think Collingwood's a really solid draft. Moving on. Layla Sennair. So Layla Sennair is one of our first sort of direct interactive powers. A negotiate from strength. Take a crew member, trade a crew member with another player. So you pick a card to give to them from your crew, and they pick a card to give to you from their crew. This is particularly useful if this gets worse throughout the game, right? Because later on in the game, the options that your opponent's going to have to give you some junk are much greater later on in the game. But if for example, your first pick was a high impact, one use power card with a very low power ranking, someone like Billy Wallace or Kate Thursday, you play that, you gain the benefit, and then the next turn you use Layla Sennair to trade that person away now that you've extracted the value from them. And if you do that early, you might be asking someone to choose between, the high quality card they've just drafted, or the first card that they drafted, which could well be a Athena Hamilton or an Oz Wilcox or someone who's worth a lot of points. So Layla is certainly time based when you want to use her, and the earlier the better, I would tend to say. And only really useful to use her if if the card you're going to be trading is poor. So if you've made some really aggressively strong, like long-term strong picks early, then she's not that useful. So for that reason, it's also quite situational. So I think we'll pop her in B tier. Okay. I think this one might be our first S tier card, and that is Joe Campbell. Joe Campbell is the expert delegator, engineering extraordinaire, and Joe gains 3 power, gets more powerful for every crew member that you assign to engineering. So, it means that Joe is, worth 5. As soon as you start doing missions, you must have one person in engineering. So Joe is actually worth 5 points, and very quickly becomes worth 8 points. With only a commitment of 3 crew members into engineering, Joe is worth more points than the game ever really asks of you. So incredibly powerful card because it means that you can kind of go, hey, my ship is guaranteed to have a very strong engineering team because I'm piling crew into engineering, and a very strong sub team of my choice. Wherever I put Joe, that is also going to wind up being a very strong sub team. So you can kind of guarantee yourself, essentially 8 points in engineering and 8 points in another sub team. Super powerful. I think that's a fairly uncontroversial S tier. I would pretty much always pick Joe if I can. The only reasons I might not pick Joe is if I already have Oz in my crew. I'm going to take a look now at Ghost, Casper Bartholin. Flexible crew member. He's only worth 2 points, but his incredibly powerful ability is that you can move him. Every mission phase, you can move him at the start of the mission phase. So, not necessarily the best pick for your first 4, but thereafter, imagine we've got a 4 in our operations team, and a couple of missions come up that want 6 in operations. Well, we can draft Casper into operations. We can complete those operations missions, and then we draw new missions at the start of the next round. We can move Casper out of operations into science or whatever, and he can now be that crucial boost to the team that you need him to boost whenever you need him. So Casper's a great pick. He's gives you a lot of flexibility to chop and change what missions you're going for, and I think for that reason, I would probably pop him in A tier. But he's not a first. He's not a first 4 rounds pick usually. Okay. Angie Talbot is probably the best card in the game. We have nerfed Angie Talbot in the design process, I think 2 times, and he's still the best card in the game. 2 strength, nothing to write home about, but his ability is incredibly flexible, is gonna help see you through to ensure that you're basically always going to be able to complete some missions. You're not ever going to get caught in a situation where you don't have the faction affiliations you need to make complete some missions. Every turn at the start of the mission phase, you get to choose a faction, and you have that faction affiliation. So it allows you to really bypass the need to recruit London base officers. And for that reason alone, Andrew Talbot is Quartermaster Extraordinaire in S tier. Okay, we're onto Kopesh section now. So we got Oliver Nightingale, another medical officer, 2 strength, and a bit like Taylor. He's boosting non-Warspite officers, so your Kopesh and your Falchions, but also your London base officers. This isn't quite as strong because there simply aren't anywhere near as many non-Warspite crew in the game, but anything that boosts London base officers is also pretty valuable. And of course, as I say, that medical tag, if you can pair it with Nurse Kilmore, makes Oliver Nightingale effectively a 6-pointer as well, which makes him very, very strong. But card on its own, I can't just assume that you're going to get Nurse Kilmore, so we're gonna pop Nightingale in B. Dent is no rest for the wicked. Cora Dent is forever unable to go home for shore leave because she's got to go fixing the hulls that everyone brings back damaged. Therefore, Cora has no rest. Her ability is no rest for the wicked. At the end of the game, if Cora on your crew, then you draw one more mission card. And if you can complete that mission card, you get 2 mission rewards. So, this is a really powerful way to get extra victory points towards the end of the game. I don't think I would be rushing to draft Cora Dent, but if she's still in play, after you've got a solid base, then you would want to draft her. I'm tempted to put Dent in A tier. Next up, another A tier. I think this is dearly beloved Zizix Furlong. Furlong has a very high point value, 4 points for power. Right off the back, so it's immediately helping you complete missions, and then you always have this ability to sacrifice Furlong to just complete a mission. Obviously, I would always recommend, because of that power value, that you hold off to the last turn to sacrifice Zizix, but it's well worth doing, and I think that puts him solid A tier. It's guaranteed points. As well as helping you throughout the game. All right, Egon Larson. Larson's ability, again, is all about flexibility. When you draft Egon Larson, it allows you to reassign your crew to different sub-teams. So not somebody that you really want to be drafting, again, in the first 4 turns, but like after you've started completing missions, and maybe you've been investing heavily in, say, your science team, and you've completed several science missions, and now you're starting to see a bunch of missions that want ops. Well, you can now play Egon Larson and start shuffling your crew around to get the right person in the right sub team. So pretty powerful at the right time. Again, I think that we generally are saying, when I say that about a card, it's B tier. Captain Athena Hamilton is worth a whopping 6 points, one of the 2 highest point scoring cards in the power value cards in the game. But Athena Hamilton is worth 0 points if they are not in the command sub-team. But, as bad as that sounds, it's not too bad. Just pop them in command, and then you've got a 6-point command team. You really don't have to worry about command again. So I think that's a solid A tier. Let's move on to Oz Wilcox. Oz Wilcox is a hopeless romantic. She's also very highly competent, but she gets in her own way. If she shares a crew with Joe Campbell, who is currently our only S tier, or one of our only S tiers, Athena Hamilton, who we've just put in A tier, or Rowan Jones, then she's worth 0 points. So valuable, but there are ways people can counterplay you with Oz Wilcox by forcing one of these people into your crew. You could get unlucky with certain cards and have them wind up in your crew, but nonetheless, the chances of you regretting drafting Oz are pretty low. The only reason you might not draft her is if you've already drafted Hamilton or Campbell or Jones. But I think Oz is a fairly common first round draft for anyone who has her in their hand. Moving on, fittingly, we've now got Rowan Jones. Rowan Jones basically allows you to chuck the hand you've just received and then draw a new hand. Again, this becomes a good choice towards the end of the game because you know the hands that you're receiving have already been stripped of the really juicy, very powerful officers. They've already been drafted, so you're probably being handed turn 6, turn 7, turn 8. You're being handed dross. So just being able to roll the dice and draw a random set of cards instead of drafting from the cards that you kind of know are rejects um, makes that a reasonably powerful card. Um, 3 strength is not to be sniffed at, but it's also nothing to write home about. So I think we call Jones a B tier, and we'll move on. Kali Kihu. So Kali is a defensive card. Hostile abilities that target your crew must target Kali Kihu. Kali goes where they're needed. Um, Solid draft. I mean, it's not a bad draft, but especially if you have if you're playing a strategy that can be completely wrecked by a particular card being stolen from you, then getting Kali is a worthwhile pick to keep yourself safe. Um, but that being said, this is probably also a C tier card because it's so situational, um, and you know, Callie's worth 3. You don't want her being stolen either. Um, probably what is a much stronger card objectively is just Freddy. Freddy is strong, and Freddy cannot be removed. Now, this also means Larson can't move her either. Cannot be moved by any means. So it can't be stolen, but also can't be reassigned by choice. So you pick a sub team for her, and she's going to loyally stick to that sub team no matter what. That's not the biggest downside in the world, though. I think that's solid B. And we'll move on. All right, here's the big bad, the scary card for which we might want to recruit Callie. Charles Richards. Charles Richards, Deputy Director of UCN Intelligence. Anyone who was present for War Games 2181 will recall Charles Richards hauling officers away for tribunal. And that's what he does here. When you draft Charles Richards, although he is 2 strength for edge cases where he could be forced onto your crew outside of the drafting process, he's never going to contribute that 2 strength to your crew because he's going to remove an officer of your choice from every other crew and then leave himself. So he's literally grabbing people, getting into the teleporter, and leaving. So he's depriving everyone of a card. Now this is very powerful. You might say, well, look, they're losing a crew, I'm losing a crew, but you're losing a pick, right? If we're three or 4 rounds in, you may draw a hand. Charles Richards, the cards other than Charles Richards aren't that exciting to you. You draft Charles Richards, fine. You're not going to get the card that you drafted into your crew this turn, but the most important thing is you're taking the very best person from every other crew. And bearing in mind that crews must have somebody, an officer in each sub team. If you steal an officer from a sub team which only has 1 officer in, leaving that sub team empty, then you are at the very least depriving that player of being able to do missions for at least 1 round, which is in itself a powerful boost. So Charles Richards, although I hate playing him, especially with new players, he is undeniably an A tier pick. Another A tier pick, I think fairly uncontroversially, is Sam Falco, a beloved training officer. Sam Falco, if anyone's had the privilege of having Falco as your training officer, they're particularly good, particularly effective and entertaining at doing it, and this is reflected in their card. Um, they boost all your London base officers. They make them like plague rats or many card games have this system of a kind of card where the card gets stronger the more you have. So if you have, two London base officers, now they're, instead of each being worth one, they're each worth two. You recruit another London base officer. Now all your London base officers are worth three, and so on. So, given the fact that London base officers are also giving you those faction tags, um, it allows you to, Sam Falco allows you to apply a London base officer heavy strategy. And obviously the downside of recruiting London base officers is they're very weak in terms of their power contribution to sub teams. But if you have Sam Falco in your crew, that completely upends that equation and just makes the London base officer strategy a no-brainer. But of course, Sam Falco is an example of a very strong strategy that of which Sam Falco is the complete linchpin. So if you're playing the game and then halfway through Sam Falco gets removed from your crew, then you're screwed. And that obviously is an example of where you would desperately want a Kalikihu to defend your Sam Falco. But regardless of that, Falco is A tier. We can't be marking cards down for being so powerful that they're always targets of removal. That's just more evidence of how powerful they are. Another beloved Warspite character here is Jay Washburn. Jay Washburn is always working on something. That means no matter where you've assigned Jay, Jay's doing a little bit of science in the background. He's boosting the science sub team by 3 power, even if Jay's not in the science sub team. So you put Jay in science, you're getting 5 in your science sub team. But you could also use Jay to boost up, your command or your engineering, your ops, and you're still getting a healthy boost to science as well. So very useful, versatile card for whatever you need. I think Jay's probably very high B or A tier. I don't think it's a first pick, but it's definitely a really solid B tier pick. All right, Ben Ridding. Ridding makes your ship go fast. This power is very good, very strong, because it's depriving other players of victory points. So every mission phase, you choose one mission that you can complete, and that's for you to complete only. Nobody else collects rewards for you. You only get to pick one mission. If you complete all 4, you got to pick which one you're depriving folks of. But as I say, that is potentially the difference between winning and losing. It's a very strong card. Obviously, you still have to be able to complete the missions, but I think it's a solid pick at any point in the game, which makes it A tier. All right, this is our halfway point. So thank you for sticking with me thus far. Olsen. Their power, Guerrilla Tactics, allows you to draw a card from the top of the crew deck, and then you can choose to replace any of your crew with them. Potentially very powerful card, because as we will see, there are lots of cards which have on draft effects or effects that are one use only, and then they aren't very strong thereafter. So you play a card that and then you later play Olsen to clear that person out. Or perhaps you have a London base officer who's a faction affiliation you no longer need. You can use Olsen to sort of cycle them out. Very powerful card. I think that's a solid B tier. Yeah. All right, Sultana. Sultana is an astrophysicist. Science is their game. So they double the power value of your science subteam after any modifier. So this means that you put Sultana in to science. If you also had Captain Taylor, then he would boost Sultana to 3, and then you double your science up to from 3 to 6. Or perhaps you put Sultana in your sub-team and you've got J elsewhere. Well, J would be adding 3 to your science. Sultana's adding 2, which is 5, and double that to 10. So Sultana basically solves your science problem for you, essentially making your science sub-team as very easy to make, as strong as you need it to be. Pretty strong power. In fact, I would say probably slightly better than Jay Washburn. So for that reason, I might pop her into A tier as well. Next one, we got Mason Garrett. Glory Day. So he allows you to seize back an officer who was removed from your crew. That means either stolen or kicked out by Charles Richards. This can make for a massive swing, because someone like Charles Richards is removing someone from every crew. You answer Charles Richards with Mason Garrett, and now you'll find that you're up a crew member on everyone else. So that's very powerful. But of course, it does rely on the fact that somebody has been stolen from your crew. So getting the timing right on Garrett is tricky, which makes him only a B tier. Huey Carson, smartest person on the ship. He allows you to. He's strong in and of his own right, 4 strength, and he also allows you to reassign officers in this sub-team. So you sort of use him to replace lower value cards, move them out to where they're needed to buff things up. A nice flexible card there. But again, I don't think reaches the heights of A tier for me, so he's going in B. Okay, Neil Bell is a 4 strengther, so that is the main value he adds. What I love about Wasted Talent is it's still very appealing to people, even though in all of my playthroughs of All Hands on Deck, I've never seen all 4 active missions happen to be exploration missions. If this happens to you, let me know, and I'd be delighted to see this Neil Bell power come off. But the power is a joke, right? And for that reason, I'm going to put him in C tier. But that may be a bit harsh, because obviously 4 strength is 4 strength, and that is not to be sniffed at. But I'm sticking with my decision. Okay, Leon Grant. He took over Chief Navigator role from Oz Wilcox once Oz was promoted to XO of the task group post War Games of 2181. And that's why he has a navigation-related power, which allows him to draw 2 mission cards and replace 1 active mission with either of them. So this is really useful, right? Allows you to deprive points of your opponents, potentially pick a mission that you can do, your opponents can't do. And at the very least, it's helping you get things into a state that you can start doing good stuff. So I think it's really, really solid B tier, very useful, both aggressive and defensive. Let's take a look at Tan Scott. Tanscott's another one of these hand manipulation powers, and it's an always-on hand manipulation power. So you always will be drawing an extra card and to pick from, and then discarding a card before you pass. So this is another one that gives you great deal of control of the game. Get rid of cards you don't or cards that you think would be really useful for your opponents, and also always going to give you fresh and valuable picks, even much later on in the game. I think Tan Scott's a really powerful card, very easy to overlook, but 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 massively helps you win. I would be often tempted to pick Tan Scott first pick so that I can get maximum value from her. She's going into A tier unless I see an S tier. I would always be keen to pick Tan Scott. Teddy Fraser. Operations is cooperations. If your operations team has a value of at least 10, then you may ignore any one mission requirement per mission phase. Many missions only have one mission requirement, or they have 2 or 3 mission requirements, one of which is a faction affiliation that you don't have, or perhaps a team strength that you don't have. Now, obviously, you're only allowed to do this for one of the 4 missions each turn. And of course, there is this big requirement that you buff up your operations team. But once you do that, and sometimes it's useful to give yourself a goal, right? A bit of focus. Then you're really guaranteeing yourself to be able to complete at least one mission per turn. So pretty good if you can pull it off. I think obviously the earliest you're likely to be able to pull this off is sort of turn 5, turn 6, and even then, it's going to be tricky. So, it is, if you compare it with Joe Campbell, right? Put Joe Campbell in your operations team, then you can get to 10 in operations by just putting 3 guys in engineering. It's pretty useful, but I think it probably comes off a little late in the game to make it A tier, but it's still a very attractive power. All right, Jasmine Hanover is another defensive card. Secret weapon. No officers in Jasmine's sub-team can be removed from the crew, including Jasmine Hanover. So, if you've got your Sam Falco or your Joe Campbell or your Angie, then you pop Jasmine in, and then they're protecting the card that you care about. Now, if you pair Jasmine Hanover with Kali Kihu, Kali Kihu has to be the target of any hostile powers, and Jasmine will make it so that she's not a valid target anymore, which would actually defend your crew from all hostile powers. That's a little bit of an edge case interaction that you're learning about here from this video. So, if you're watching this video, you're getting some of the real pro tip power combos from me here. I still say, though, Jasmine is pretty situational, so it's still C tier. Moving on, we've got Robert Lyon. Robert spring-loaded. Start drawing from the card draw deck until you hit another on-draft ability, and then activate that ability. It's kind of fun, but there are actually if we review the on-draft abilities, there are many that aren't that great, that useful. We've yet to see one that I think makes it super valuable to have. So I think Lyon's also a C tier. Moving on. All right, Julio Ferreira. Triage operation. So he's a 5, but he's actually only a 2 if you have him with anyone else. Um, so if you look at your sub teams and say, look, I need science to be a 5, and but if I never want it to, it's never going to be more than that, then then Ferreira's a really good pick. Um, I think he probably is A tier, especially when we factor in that you could still boost science. In particular, science can be boosted without putting extra crew in. So J plus Ferreira still gets you a science value of 8, really powerful. Um, so the downside's not that much of a downside, and it can be mitigated in other ways. So any 5 strength crew member is pretty appealing. Um, and of course, he can be buffed by Taylor to make him a 6 strengther. And then you start, once you're hitting 6th, you're kind of thinking, well, I have no need to put other crew in that sub team. So I think he's an A tier. Esther Gethin is similar, but actually much harder to mitigate. Gethin's a 5 unless you have, sorry, 5 is if and only if you have a medical officer on the crew. If not, she's only worth 2. So look, Geffin's a bit different. Ferreira, you're drafting and going, well, I now that's restricting my play. Whereas Geffen is more like, well, I have a medical officer on my crew. And if you do have a medical officer on your crew, then definitely you want to draft Geffen, right? Because 5 is a great power value. But if you don't have a medical officer on your crew, you're probably not drafting Geffen. So I got to say that sounds like C tier to me. It's potentially B, but that's quite situational on you having that medical officer. There, as I say, there aren't many of them. But here is one of them, and here's the one that makes medical officers very attractive. He adds 4 strength to other medical officers on the crew. So suddenly your pick of Green or Nightingale becomes a lot more appealing if you have Kilmore on the crew, because Nightingale becomes a 6, Green becomes a 7, and now you're running a medical ship, and you've got very strong sub teams from very early, very low crew numbers. So Kilmore can be very powerful, but only if you're drawing and drafting the medical crew. So he goes B too. Shirley Bishop allows you to discard and any number of cards from your current hand, and then replace them. So this is the current hand on draft power. So it's not improving your hand for yourself. It is potentially improving the hand for the person you're about to pass it to. So Bishop's very situational. Maybe the weakest card in the game, it has to be said. Her main value is just if you are looking at a hand and you're seeing a few cards that you really don't want to see fall into your opponent's crews, then you can use these to clear those out. But I would ask you, if you're using Shirley Bishop in that way, why are you not picking those other cards instead? I mean, you may wish to use Shirley Bishop, for example, to get rid of Chuck Richards, Layla Talvar, Billy Wallace, other aggressive cards. You don't want to play those cards because you don't want to be a dick, but you also don't want to play it against you, in which case Shirley Bishop is your friend. But unfortunately, I'd probably putting Bishop in D tier because that's a really very personality-driven pick. Wee Young Moon really hates pirates, even ex-pirates, I hear. And so he cancels out pirate abilities if you choose. Now, the pirate abilities aren't inherently bad or inherently good. They just shake up the game. So it's kind of nice to have control of that, because sometimes you want the game shaken up and sometimes you really don't want the game shaken up. So most an example of, let's bring up the pirate cards real quick, so we can take a look at those. Um, First one is Riley Varick. Of the New Buccaneers. Each player passes a crew member of their choice to the player to the right. Again, not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but you may just really not want the disruption, so it's good to be able to cancel that out. Another one that you may or may not wish to cancel out is Seraphina Morgan, whose unexpected ambush causes cards to be discarded, all the missions to be discarded and replaced. Well, look, you know, you may be just about um, to complete a mission that you've been working on for a while. You really don't want that getting replaced, so great to be able to cancel that out. Another one that you may or may not care about is the shuffling of hands and redealing of hands. And then lastly is Gobber, who allows you to or allows folks to wager their mission rewards. So this is very useful for anyone who's got a bunch of low value mission rewards and no high value, no medals, um, but is useless if you're sitting on the Confederation commendation and a couple of other medals. And you don't want other people being able to gamble their low values. You aren't going to take advantage of this, and you don't want other people to. So again, useful to be able to cancel that out. Um, but it's not an obvious, like unequivocal good to be able to cancel out pirate abilities. It's occasionally pretty useful, and so for that reason, I think Moon is also just a C tier um, character. All right, bear with me. So, okay, um, Jack Talisker. Talisker is a very strong card. Allows you to ignore crucial rule, the minimum viable crew rule. This basically means that with Talisker's automated systems, you may complete missions even if you don't have a crew member in each sub team. So obviously, the first thought will be that this is a useful card early on in the game. You could start completing missions as early as turn two. I don't think there are any missions that Jack Talisker would be able to complete on his own. But you could start potentially completing a mission or two on turn two. If you, for example, you had Athena Hamilton in command, you could complete the mission that requires a captain or a commander in your command sub team. If you've then put Jack Talisker somewhere else, so he's allowing you to maybe sneak a mission or two in the early rounds, which you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. But don't sleep on the longer term benefits of Jack Talisker, which is that now if somebody uses Chuck Richards to empty out one of your sub teams, then you can still keep flying and keep completing missions. Talisker would allow you to use Captain Larson to completely empty a sub team, to pivot away completely from a particular sub team, to boost up a different one, and still be able to kickstart completing missions. So he's giving you a lot more flexibility in the late game as well as defensive power, as well as some strength in the early game. So I would put Talisker all the way up into S tier. I think he's a very powerful card. May regret putting him in the game. We'll see. All right, we've got Bo Murphy, the fourth and final medical officer. Bo Murphy is the ship's counselor, and as a result, he is a good listener. And the power is that he allows people to get over their issues. So any time a character has a negative power, they can talk it through with Bo Murphy as long as Bo Murphy's on their sub team. So, for example, if you put Bo Murphy on on the same sub team as Oz Wilcox, then now you can have Joe Campbell or Athena Hamilton or Rowan Jones on the crew without harming uh, Wilcox's power value. Or you could put Murphy on the same sub team as Freddie Moore, and now Freddie Moore can be moved. Or you could put him on the same team as Athena Hamilton if somehow somebody's moved Hamilton onto your crew in not a command position. Then Bo Murphy can be your solution to that. So there are probably about 5 cards in the game which have like negative powers that Bo Murphy can help cancel out and then turn them into unadulterated, very 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 powerful cards. But again, it's so situational. It's, I'm afraid, stuck in C tier. Let's move on. We've got Vittorini. So Vittorini is the executive chef. She is worth the amount of whoever she's with. She's sort of supporting an executive officer, and in doing so, she's sort of adding their value to her own. So this is pretty useful. It's pretty handy in some situations, but quite often you're putting her on, and she's just sort of adding 3, which is like there's plenty of cards which would give you a 3 and a power, right? And if you're putting her with a very powerful character, like Oz or Athena Hamilton or Ferreira or Esther Gethin, then she's boosting you up to insanely high values. But do you need those values? I think she's a C tier, a low C tier at that. All right, we're on the home stretch now. Beck Dallas. Now Beck Dallas card is Beck is a dark horse. And many of us believe Beck Dallas, is maybe the most powerful character in the Warspite task group, and her power reflects this. It allows her to select any single use ability that's on any crew right now and reuse it. So anything that you've seen here that you think, oh, that's very powerful, I'd like to be able to do that. Well, Beck will allow you to do it again. Beck will allow you to do it. So it's like stealing powers. We haven't seen Billy Wallace yet. I probably should have brought Billy Wallace earlier in because I keep referencing Billy Wallace. But I think Beck Dallas is an A tier pick because she's going to almost certainly get you something very useful, very tasty. Let's take a look at Billy Wallace now because I think it's worth us taking an example of something that would be very useful to be able to redo. Billy Wallace, you're my best friend. After you draft, Billy Wallace can steal an officer from another crew, put her on Billy Wallace's team. So this can really ruin someone else's day. So they do get the consolation prize of drawing the top card from the crew deck and putting them in the crew instead. But you're taking a very powerful card, the most powerful card in the game that's been played so far from any crew, and you're taking it onto your own. Hugely powerful, iconic, valuable card, one for which we have a bunch of cards to defend against. It's that powerful. That's going in S tier. The only reason not to draft Billy Wallace is if it's very early in the game and nothing's been drafted yet. But even then, Billy Wallace is a first turn pick because you can still always steal someone that's just been drafted. Draft Billy Wallace so someone else doesn't is my advice. It's probably the most no-brainer draft in the entire game. All right, penultimate card to review here is Edward Bell. Edward Bell allows you to search for a pirate card, enact its effect, and keep it. So right here, we talked about Zizix Furlong being, it's an auto-complete emission. That's some points. Ed Bell is just giving you points, giving you 2 points. Because pirate cards are worth 2 points. So that in itself makes Ed Bell a very obvious pick because it's just 2 points just for the privilege of drafting Ed Bell, and you also potentially get to do some shake up chaos of the game. You can cycle out the missions, which can kind of ruin everyone else's day. You can shuffle up the hands. Really useful stuff to have. But the main thing is it's giving you victory points. Like we put Cora Dent in A tier because she gives you a chance at the end of the game. You draw a mission, and if you can complete it, you get 2 mission rewards. But the vast majority of the mission rewards are 1-pointers, so you get 2 of them. In all likelihood, that's 2 points, right? It could be as much, in the best case scenario, it could be as much as 5 points. But in most scenarios, it's going to be 2, maybe 3 points, right? Ed Bell's just giving you 2. You don't even have a test for it. You just get the 2 points for drafting him. So that makes him a high A tier for sure. I think is a pretty obvious pick. I mean, the only downside is that he's not worth that many points to the sub team. Only 2 points to the sub team, but I think a pretty obvious pick for sure. And Kate Thursday is another very powerful card. Now, look, Kate Thursday is only worth 1 in and of themselves. But for those who are paying attention to all the clues and remembering what characters are in what hand, Kate Thursday gives you an ability to get a crew member up on everyone else. Because if you choose a player and name a card, and if the card is in their hand, then you get that card in addition to Kate Thursday, right? And that's now in your crew. So you've drafted Kate Thursday. Admittedly, she is only worth one strength, but you're getting another card of your choice as long as you can remember who is where. You can get that card and you can place them in separate teams. So Kate Thursday. Early doors potentially allows you to start completing missions a whole turn earlier than everyone else. And then, yes, she's only 1 strength in and of herself, but this is a great example of a card that you would maybe pick turn 2, grab something from the first hand that you looked at, and then turn 3, if you get lucky, you might get a chance to draw Layla and then trade Kate away for someone better. So Kate's very powerful. I think Kate goes into A tier. So all hands on deck. Pre-orders will be taking place. I don't know when this video is going out, but pre-orders will be taking place once this video is out. So there'll be a link in the description here for where you can pre-order All Hands on Deck. Probably by the time that I'm releasing this video, All Hands on Deck will be available in the mess for you to play. I hope that you've played it before watching this video, because this video is probably not going to make that much sense before you've played it. But please do consider pre-ordering All Hands on Deck. Most of the proceeds are going straight to supporting Bridge Command. We need those pre-orders because you can't do print-on-demand board games. We have to do a print run, and so we need anyone who's interested to pre-order so that we know how big a print run to do. If you don't pre-order, there is no guarantee that you'll get hands on a copy of the game. So your support would be much appreciated. It's a great way to support Bridge Command, and it's a great way to support. I mean, look at all this fantastic artwork that Natasha's done. Show your support for Natasha's fantastic artwork, and the incredible character work that all of the performers of Bridge Command put in. This is All Hands on Deck is a love letter to Bridge Command, and I hope that you appreciate the thought and care that we've put into designing it to help you learn about the characters, recollect good times and bad times with the characters, and yeah. Well, this is the tier list. Play the game, and then by all means argue with me about my decisions. I mean, who am I to tell you which is the best and worst cards? I'm just one part of the design team.